Hi everybody, it's Corey. I see that folks are just starting to join us. Some people joined us for the orientation, but if you're just connecting, you are in the right place for the October Talks on Tuesday. We'll be getting started in about a minute. Thank you. All right, well, hi everybody. This is Dana Childress. I think we're about ready to get started. It's 12:01, and we're about ready to jump in. So I want to welcome you today to our Talks on Tuesdays. Today's Talks on Tuesday is maybe a little different than some of the others we have done. We are using today's Talks on Tuesday to launch our coaching facilitation guide. So we're pretty excited about this as a new resource for you all, and I'm just thrilled that you've decided to join us today. What we're planning to do is sort of walk through the guide today, give you kind of an orientation to it, maybe try out an activity or two. So we'll do that for part of our time. Then the other part of our time, we will talk about an implementation project that we're offering to you that we hope you will get excited about and want to take advantage of. So we'll talk about that during the last half of the webinar. So as always, feel free to ask questions. Type your comments into chat. I'll be monitoring those. Corey will be too as we go along, and be happy to answer them about the project. So feel free to ask. I wanted to acknowledge Jeannie Schroeder is on with us. She's our technical specialist, and I got to give her all the credit for this fantastic rocket and the design for this webinar. It's just awesome. I also have to give Jeannie credit for making a dream of my bucket list come true with, I will show you, me in a rocket suit. Who doesn't want to see themselves as an astronaut? So this I'm cueing Rocket Man right now. That's what's playing in my head.
There you go. So you guys get your Tuesday afternoon giggle by seeing me with my thumbs up in a rocket suit. The funny part is I thought the boots on the rocket suit actually kind of matched the boot on my ankle. I have wearing one of those boots from an ankle injury, so Jeannie captured it perfectly. So anyway, just thought that was a pretty funny thing. I know lots of you guys that I see are calling in. I'm Dana Childress, and I work for the Partnership for People with Disabilities at VCU as an EI Professional Development Consultant. And I was part of the work group that developed the guide that we're going to talk about today. All right, so here's a picture, just a cover shot of the guide. The Virginia's Facilitation Guide is a brand new resource that we just launched out to the field a couple weeks ago. Your system managers have a copy. They were all given a copy of the facilitation guide, a printed copy, at the local system managers meeting.
The guide is also, as of yesterday, available on the VEIPD website. You can find it as a PDF that you can download and print if you want. It is 149 pages, so you might want to be careful with printing all that, but it's available if you go to the VEIPD./main site. You go to EI Topics and Trends, and then find the Coaching and Early Intervention page. You will see it right there on the top of the page. We wanted to make sure you had access to the guide if you haven't seen the whole thing yet, but I wanted to let you know to keep an eye on that page because I'm also going to be posting PowerPoint will go with the guide to help you be able to orient your staff. So that's another resource that's coming soon. All right. So let me talk to you a little bit about the guide. We are going to be showing you pages from the guide as screenshots today because it was really going to be a little too problematic for me to try to open the guide up and show you as like sharing my screen. So we're going to walk through today. I'll call out some page numbers. That way if you do have a copy of it in front of you and want to flip through, that's completely fine. You don't have to have a copy with you because again we'll show it to you on the screen. We just really wanted to give you an idea of what's included. So let me start by oh, thank you. I see Corey put the URL, the link in the chat. Thank you. So I wanted to kind of give you a sense of where we've come from and to where we are now. And Corey can jump in here and help me too if I miss anything. So Virginia has had a pretty strong coaching initiative that began back in 2012. And we have adopted coaching practices as our evidence-based practices that we're using to deliver services to children and families. Coaching is a practice that's really evolving in early intervention, and it's considered a promising practice, meaning that there's lots of research going on right now to try to figure out its impact on early intervention. And the initial work that's out there is showing some really promising positive effects for not only the child's learning, but the caregiver's learning as well. So we're pretty excited to be trying to integrate this practice into what we do. So with our coaching initiative, we brought two of the leaders for coaching and early intervention to Virginia, Dathan Rush and Melissa Sheldon. They have trained across our state. We have gotten 6 regions trained, and that included Nova, Northern Virginia, Tidewater, the Valley region, Richmond. We had a Roanoke Southwest group, and we had our last group of master coaches, which we called our Roundup group, and that was folks who hadn't been able to attend the previous trainings. In total, we've had 84 master coaches trained and 278 coaching team participants. So that's pretty cool. We're pretty excited to have this folks trained to provide support for their teams in coaching across the state. But as you can look at those numbers, we're pretty thrilled with the numbers, but that's a tiny drop in the bucket considering how many early intervention providers we have across the state. So our master coaches were tasked with taking this information back to their localities, back to their programs, and supporting implementation of coaching practices across their program. We know that there's been some great regional efforts that have followed these statewide trainings. We've had really impressive regional efforts in Northern Virginia. We've had great efforts in the Valley region, and we had an ongoing effort here in my area in Tidewater. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about what Tidewater's done. And I think I saw there's a Tracy on our participant list. So I'm hoping that's Tracy Miller. If that is you, Tracy, feel free to type into chat anything you want to add. Tracy Miller from Rehab Associates has led a regional coaching group in Tidewater for at least about the last 2 years. Oh, good. Hi, Tracy. So what we did, we tried to pull folks together who'd been to the training. We wanted to have folks from all the different programs in the area and have an opportunity for them to come together monthly and talk about their coaching practices and get support and learn together. And it's been phenomenal to me that we've had anywhere from 11 to probably 15 or so folks show up every month, ready to learn, ready to share what they're doing. I mean, the commitment has been so impressive. We have spent lots of time trying to broaden our practices. We begin and end meetings with a joint plan for each person. It's just been a really great group. Within probably this year, 2015, we have spent some of our time piloting the coaching guide that I'm going to talk to you about today. So the Tidewater group had the opportunity to use the activities in the guide, and then they took it back to their programs and used those same activities. The next month, they would come back to our regional group and share feedback. And they were very constructive and very honest with their feedback about what worked well and which activities they thought needed tweaking. And so I was able to take their feedback and integrate it into the final version of the guide. So that was fantastic. Now as a regional group, we're trying to figure out how do we continue the learning now that we've finished piloting the guide. So we're definitely, it's a group that's got a lot of energy, which is a wonderful thing. And I don't know, Tracy, if you have anything to add about the group, feel free to type it in. And if we have folks from the Valley or Nova, I'd be happy to hear about yours too. If other regions that I didn't mention have had some regional efforts going on, please type it in the chat and let us know what you're doing, because that's part of the implementation project where we're going next, is to try to support implementation at the local level.
And Dana, this is Corey. I don't know if Valley is on, but I know Stacy Jackson has been spearheading some of that work, and they have actually developed a 4-hour training that new providers have to go through related to coaching. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that providers get a coach mentor to help them as they're kind of going through this process. The other person, maybe Molly Zarsky, is also on the call. If I've misrepresented any of that, feel free to type in chat as well.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. Stacy's group's PowerPoint is actually one of the ones I'm going to post, which is very cool. So for those of you that are system managers or supervisors or just, early intervention providers who want to keep this going in your local system, you'll have a really well done PowerPoint, probably more than one. I have to get them both ready, but we have a couple of versions to offer you that you could take and use. So it's a great resource that they have been really gracious in sharing. All right, so, great. We have some information from Stanton Waynesboro. They have a regional group that's been meeting to build capacity. We've done community meetings as well as work being done. Oh, in Blue Ridge, so they've done it across some different systems. So that's fantastic. I think there's, we're all kind of have this common goal of trying to not only adopt coaching practices, but sustain them. And sustaining them is the harder part, because a lot of us get excited about them, but then when you get out there and you're working with families, it's so easy to fall back into your sort of more traditional practices where we're sitting on the floor playing with the baby while the parent watches. And we know from our literature that's really not the best way to be the most effective. So after the statewide trainings, as the regional efforts are kind of plugging along, I was hearing from local systems that were saying, and just other coaches saying, we're really struggling to take what we learned and help our colleagues who didn't go to the training learn it too. Sometimes they were getting some resistance from folks saying, oh, I already know how to coach, I already know how to do that. And maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Sometimes they were getting folks saying, I don't have time for this, or what I'm doing is working just fine. So they were struggling. And other folks were saying, I have folks that really want to learn about this, but I don't know how to take what I learned and translate it for other people. So from all this different feedback, the coaching facilitation guide, the idea for it came about. So what we did is we decided to create something that the local systems, local providers could use in their staff meetings, maybe to facilitate a book study of the Early Childhood Coaching Handbook that you guys could use, give you everything you need to facilitate those kind of activities. So we decided to get a work group together to create this. And so we invited a master coach from each region to participate. Not all regions' master coaches were able to participate, but we ended up with a core group of really dedicated folks. The core group met monthly for almost a year, and what we did is we talked about their experiences implementing coaching related to the Early Childhood Coaching Handbook, and what activities we could create to make it easier for others to help support learning in their system. So I am going to acknowledge those folks on the work group in just a second. So the work group met, we worked really hard, put this book together, and like I said, it's about 149 pages, so it's a lengthy book, which is wonderful. So I'm going to give you a sneak peek. Yeah, Corey says, yay, coaching core group, absolutely. So I'm going to walk through, feel free to ask me questions, but I challenge you to be thinking as we go along. I want you to identify something you could do with this coaching book when you get it. When it's in your hands, what's something you could do at your next meeting? So I'm just going to start you off. You've seen the cover. This is the table of contents. There are 5 sections. Don't worry about having to read through all of this because we're going to go through each section. what we tried to do was make the sections match up and with the content covered in the book. At the beginning of the guide, you're going to have tips for facilitating the book study or the group, lots of tips for your role as a facilitator, how to get the meetings organized, because we know some of us have done this before and some of us haven't. So we tried to give you what you needed to get the ball rolling. You know, it's one of my pet peeves, Corey knows this, to put something on the screen and say, I know you can't really read this, but, and like here I am doing it. So this is, we're going to walk through all of this, so don't try to read this whole page. It's kind of crazy. Wait, I cannot read this. Ha ha, Corey, I see what you did there. So I wanted to just acknowledge the work group members. Let me see if I can grab one of those pointer tools. All right, hopefully you can see this. So here is our work group. Corey was on our work group. Stacy Jackson from Stanton Waynesboro, Tracy Miller from Rehab Associates, and Tracy's the assistant manager for Eastern Shore, and then Mary Ellen Plitt. This was our core group that met monthly. We also had feedback by email from Kimberly Spivey from Richmond, and that was very helpful too. So this is the group that deserves all the kudos for getting this coaching guide off the ground. So let's jump in and look at section 1. So the first section, we really focused on just an overview of what is coaching in the context of EI. So we have some highlights here. This section will help you work with your staff on the definition of coaching, how they articulate the evidence base behind coaching. Our group felt it was very important not just to say to families and other providers, oh, we use coaching, but to be able to say why it's the right thing to do. So you'll have guidance in here about that. We also talked about the 5 key characteristics of coaching and the 10 key elements of coaching. All of this was to try to build your staff's capacity to be able to understand and explain coaching as an evidence-based practice. You can see you have guidance for what to do before your first meeting and then what to do during the meeting. This section has 6 activities. They take anywhere between 10 to 30 minutes to complete each activity. And this section has 4 handouts that are already prepared for you. Each handout, whenever there's a handout that has answers that need to be filled in by your group, you'll also have an answer key to help you facilitate it. So let me show you what those activities look like. All right, so here we have the 6 activities in this group. I'm going to pause to give you a chance to read the titles of the different activities. Okay, so these activities, you know, the idea of offering you so many activities in each section was that you can either use your book study time or your staff meeting time to go through each activity. You won't be able to finish all of them in like an hour-long meeting. They will probably take longer. Depends on the size of your group. But the nice thing is you can pick and choose activities that meet the needs of your staff or your colleagues. So that's kind of cool. The activity that our group in Tidewater seemed to really resonate with them, the one that they seemed to use a lot of, was this one here, this 10 key elements of coaching in early childhood. So we're going to look at that one, and I'm going to show you that one as an example. So for each activity, you have an activity guide. And so the activity guide gives you a purpose for the activity, tells you what handouts or materials you're going to need, tells you a length of time, and these are estimates depending on your size of your group. And then you have really specific steps to help you know how to facilitate the activity. Some of them also have an alternate activity that you can tweak, you know, to make it fit your group. You're also going to find the handouts put together. So this is the handout for the 10 key elements. For this, I'm going to show you what these look like. I'm going to zoom in on them so you'll see them in just a second. The idea of this activity with the 10 key elements, we took the elements from the coaching handbook and we created a looks like, doesn't look like document, kind of modeled after the 7 key principles, looks like, doesn't look like document from the Early Childhood Technical Assistance Center. So your staff will read this, but then they will fill in the missing pieces. So let's look at the first one. So here they would read when coaching is consistent with adult learning, it's going to look like this, and here's an example. When it's not consistent, this is what it will look like, and then we will fill an example in here. So I'm going to pause to give you a chance to do that. I want you to read this one and then type into chat an example of what this would look, what it would look like if we weren't using coaching consistent with adult learning. So take a moment to read it and type into chat your answer. You don't have to type in a whole paragraph like you have here for your example. Just type in a sentence or two, a line or two about your best guess about what this would look like when it doesn't look like we're really focused on the adult learner. Okay, so I see a couple folks are typing in. Okay, so Mary says that the speech pathologist did the work with the kiddo but doesn't engage the mom at all. Exactly, Mary. Tracy writes the mom sits on the couch while the therapist works with the child. So yeah, that parent is more of a passive observer than actively learning during the session. Yep, absolutely. So you guys, those are some great examples. I think we could go lots of different ways, and that's the nice thing with this activity is you got some flexibility in how your folks interpret it. Karen and Molly, and I couldn't see the last name, oh, Carrie, PT walking outside with the child while the parent's on the phone not paying attention. Yep, therapist teaches the child signs, but the mother doesn't know what the sign means. Fantastic one, Central Virginia. Yep, I had that once where we taught a child to sign more, and then he went to daycare and signed it for a week, and nobody told the daycare provider what he was signing. Definitely a flop in terms of supporting adult learning there. All right, great job, guys. So let's look at an example. This is the second one here, and I just show you this as an example because here you can see the example that your staff would fill in is on the other side. They would actually fill in for this one. What does it look like when it's going well? All right, so I'm going to keep us moving. And here I wanted to show you an example of your answer key where you have in italics examples that you could share with your folks if you were, as a facilitator, struggling to come up with one. All right, so let's move on to section 2. So section 2 really digs into characteristics and beliefs of practitioners who use coaching. You know, there's research that tells us, and it's common sense too, that we're not going to change practices if practices conflict with your beliefs. So you've really got to spend time with your folks thinking about what do you believe about your role as an early interventionist and your role in family-centered care. And so that's what your highlights really focus on here. You have 7 activities in this section. They take 15 to 30 minutes, and you have 8 handouts and answer keys. So this is kind of a lot on this slide. You've got lots of things here. What I want you to do is I'm not going to pull one out. I want you to pick which activity you'd like to hear more about. So you're going to use your pointer tool. So Corey talked to you about going to your vertical toolbar to the left of your slide. The second box down has a starburst or a little hand. That's what I've been using to point. So just click on one of those and then drop your pointer on the activity number that you'd like to hear more about. I see it looks like somebody wrote with some yellow. That's fine if you want to do that too. We'll just kind of see what folks are interested in, and then I'll tell you a little bit about it. All right. You guys are going to hear me flipping through my book. All right, well, it looks like we've got a lot of interest in characteristics of effective early intervention and other interests in other areas too, which is very exciting. So the characteristics, this number 3 here, this activity gives you a case study, and you'll have a case study of the same child and family, but 2 different intervention visits, 2 different providers. One intervention visit is more of a traditional intervention visit where the provider is more focused on working with the child. The other is more of a coaching interaction. And so you can use that to try to think about with your staff what their practices look like. You actually start this activity by having your staff or your colleagues come up with a list of characteristics of early interventionists and effective visits. What I found when I did this is a lot of times folks come up with characteristics of families. Well, if this family does this, or if this household has this, I would challenge you with your staff to switch that back and think, no, what are characteristics of what I do as a provider that makes this visit effective? And then you're going to look for those characteristics in the case study. So it's what we found is a pretty effective way to help your staff look at a real example and think through it. And then you want to think about, take those characteristics and think as a program, what do we need to implement to make this happen in my locality? All right, so let's move on to section 3. We have 5 sections total, so we're a little about halfway there. Let's see, for section 3, this is a shorter section. This is interacting with parents and caregivers. It focuses on supporting adult learning and preparing and engaging families. It's a little bit of a shorter section because we really wove this stuff throughout the whole book. So this one has 4 activities, 15 to 90 minutes long because we recommend that your folks watch one of the archived webinars, and 3 handouts and answer keys. All right, so here we have 4 activities again. I want you to do the same thing. Take your pointer tool, drop it on which activity you'd like to hear a little bit more about. Oh man, I was going to say I thought we were going to have a tie. I was going to have to, oh, we do have a tie. Nope, we're going, gosh, you guys are great. I want to hear about a little bit of everything. That's awesome. All right, so let's see. It looks like the majority rules with number 2 here maybe. Oh, there's people are switching their dots on me. All right, let's talk about preparing families for coaching. So preparing families for coaching is about a 15 to 30 minute activity. This activity, you're going to make a copy. You have a handout with some statements about strategies for preparing families. Things like, some of these are kind of basic, taking time to get to know the family, helping them understand what EI looks like, checking with the parent about the joint plan at the beginning of each visit. And what you're going to do is you're going to work together as a group to come up with ideas for implementing what sounds like pretty simple strategies, but when you try to use them, that's where it gets a little tricky. So you're going to have your learners, what we recommend is take those strategies, cut them up, put them in a hat. People are going to randomly pick one out. Then they have to talk about what would the strategy look like in practice, what challenges might be associated with the strategy, and how could you overcome them. And so for every challenge, we want you as a group to spend time overcoming it so that when somebody in your program says, I check in about the joint plan, but the parent says, I didn't do it, they've already got a solution in their pocket for how to overcome that. And so that's kind of how that one works. I wish I could talk to you about all the rest of them, but I'm happy to do that after the webinar if you need some guidance once you get your hands on this booklet. All right, so section 4, implementing the components of coaching during EI visits. We have the components here. This section we were pretty happy to be able to focus on what an early intervention looks like when coaching is used. And so I'm going to talk to you about that. There's actually two activities that will help you focus on that highlight, and we're very fortunate to have a video to share with you. So this section has 9 activities, 10 to 40 minutes long, and 7 handouts. So let's look at those activities. So activity 1 and 2 are coaching in action. And we're so lucky to have a video of a coach here in Virginia, in Northern Virginia. Robin Hoofnagel submitted a video for the EI Institute last year. And she did a beautiful job of showing multiple characteristics of coaching in her video, and was generous enough really to let us include a link to her video in the coaching guide. So you'll have a link. The guide provides you with a link. All of the links are embedded in the PDF, so they're easy to use, but there's also a page in the guide where you can find the links as well. But you'll watch the video with your folks. You'll look for the 5 characteristics of coaching. And then the second activity, Robin does a beautiful job of asking reflective questions. And not only does she ask them, she knows how to respond to them when the family answers them. And that's what I hear from folks is saying that's one of the hardest things to do. Ha! Somebody beat me to it. They put a little star on challenging situations. I think we're having a psychic moment because that's actually the activity I was going to show you. Well done. So this is activity 8, and this is one people really want to talk about, are all those challenges that you face when you think, I've got this coaching thing down, and then you go use it, and it's a little harder than you expected. So I'm going to have you we're going to kind of play around with this activity, and I'm going to have you use your whiteboard tool to write on the whiteboard, to write on the slides a challenge you faced. So go back to that vertical toolbar where you got your pointer. This time you're going to look at the 4th box down that has a lowercase a and the little lines. You're going to click on that box, and then you probably have to click again on the little a that pops up. Come out onto the white screen that you see under the challenging situation. Click your cursor and write in a challenge. What this tool does is gives you a text box to write on the screen.
And just a reminder that you need to write a short statement. You can't use your hard return on that or it won't show up. So just a short statement.
Yeah, short statements are great, and be sure to protect families' confidentiality too. Thank you, Corey. So we have childcare seems to be a consistent one here. Childcare setting and families that are non-English speakers. Yep. Really young parents. You know, and I wish we had more time. Oh, it looks like a tiny, tiny little pink cell phone. So families that are on their cell phones. When parents have unrealistic ideas of child development. You know, that one is really interesting. 0 to 3 did a study that found most parents have unrealistic expectations of child development. It's like where you expect the 2-year-old to sit through dinner at a restaurant. People think that. Parents who have a disability. Just trying to see if I missed any. All right.
Really old parents. We have really young, really old parents.
Yeah. Kind of teach an old dog new tricks, right? Sometimes we think we know how to do it, and we could use some of that. Parents who want us to give them the answers, okay? Parents who have a hearing impairment. So lots of challenges for sure. All right, so what you're going to do when you facilitate this activity is you are going to pick one, or actually pick multiple ones. With your group will come up with the challenges that are facing you and your locality. Then as a group, you will come up with the solutions. So let's do that today. Let's see. Let's pick. I don't know, I kind of see that child care setting with like 14 exclamation points. I'm feeling kind of somebody's pretty passionate about that one. Let's try child care. So I want you to type into chat a solution. What's an idea to help make coaching easier to use in a child care setting? Type your idea into chat. You might be saying, well, I'm the one that typed it in there, so I don't know. And that's okay, because lots of people on the call with you probably are struggling with the same thing. But let's come up with a couple of ideas about how to coach in child care settings. Okay, so Emily, understanding child care settings and routines before going in to coaching. That's a great one. So before launching into it, take the time to get to know the setting and the routine and what that child care provider is already doing. Partner with your local child care office or directors. Oh, to provide training. Yep, so everybody is on the same page with how early intervention works. Yeah. Use short videos. Use short videos between provider and family routines. Yep. Educating the provider. I love that one. I think that's maybe Fairfax. Educating the child care provider beforehand about how we can support them through coaching, because they probably don't know what to expect. Discuss the idea, get the buy-in from the director, and then ask the teacher if she has a few minutes either before or after the session to really talk about how coaching works. Oh, Karen Taylor, you guys, that's a great one. Have the daycare folks participate in the IFSP meeting. So if they're part of the process from the beginning, you're right, it's more likely that they'll understand how this works. Now I know there are also unique situations in each child care setting that can make this challenging. One provider with 4, 5, 6 toddlers running around. How do you get their attention? But this is the kind of thing you can talk about with your team, because you're going to use the wealth of the knowledge that's on your team because it's there. Tara writes to go to make sure the time of your session is the best time of the day for the staff. I know that was a challenging thing for me when I was a provider, because the child care staff might say, oh, if you came at nap time, that is when things are easy. And that's okay, because remember, you're there to support the caregiver's learning. But you do need to go when the child is awake sometimes, because you need to kind of work with the child and the child care provider together. So kind of balancing that is a great time. So helping the provider, that daycare provider know, this is what I would, how we're going to work together, what would work best for you. I love that suggestion. All right, thank you. I'm going to show you in the last section, we actually have an activity to help you think through this. So our last section of the guide is coaching in special situations. So our work group really honed in on coaching families in challenging situations, coaching families of children with more significant disabilities, and coaching teachers in child care, other group settings. Particularly the last two of these are the ones we've heard a lot of folks say, coaching is so hard in these situations. And our work group felt really strongly that you can use coaching in any situation. It really comes down to how you as a provider interact with that caregiver. There's lots of stuff going on in the environment, or a child might have multiple needs, but when it comes down to it, if we focus and hone in on the priorities and the routines in that environment with the caregiver, we can still use coaching quite effectively. But I understand it can definitely be a challenge. So this is your last section. You have your feedback before the meeting. You have a lot more information here about starting the meeting and ending it, because our work group felt really strongly that we didn't want to just say, whoop, you're done with your book study. We wanted you to be thinking about how to keep the learning happening in your locality. And so that's what we challenge you to do as your own staff. What could you do after the book study's over? So here we have an activity to meet each of those highlights. They take 20 to 45 minutes, and you have a couple of handouts. So we have coaching different families. We have an activity that matches. I'm actually going to show you an example of the coaching. That actually should say, I don't think it does say different families. I know our highlight says families in difficult situations. Oh, nope, it did. See, I wrote it and don't even remember. So for this handout, for this activity, we give you 3 case studies based on real experiences. And we're going to actually look at Hakeem's family's case study just a little closer. So I'm going to pause to give you a chance to read the case study. You'll read the full case study, and then down here at the bottom you have a thought question, a discussion question that you would use with your group to think about what you might do. It's sort of like our blog posts. What would you do if you were in this situation? So take a moment to read and type your solutions, your suggestions into chat. Okay, so once you read, think about how Tamika could coach Hakeem's mother, Jamila, during that crawling routine. That's something that she and her daughter are already trying to do every day. Think about what questions would you ask, or what would you do if you were in that moment and you were the coach. Go ahead and type some ideas into chat. Okay, great. Fairfax says, ask why they think he's crying. That's the first great question, because we can look and think, oh, it's got low muscle tone, or oh, you know, this reason or that. But ask them first. Get their impression. That's part of that coaching practice of asking for what they already know, helping them reflect on what they already know. Well done. Okay, I see a couple other folks are typing. I feel like I should play like the Jeopardy music while people are typing because it's so quiet. So Fairfax says, show Jamila what it looks like. So you might ask, if once you've kind of explored what they're already doing, if there's an opportunity to do some of that intentional modeling, sure, you might ask Jamila if you could show her a strategy. But remember, you always say, and here's what I want you to watch for. Maybe I want you to watch for how I hold his hips so that his little legs don't fly out from under. You give her something to watch for. Stanton Waynesboro says, encourage them to show you what this routine looks like and when it occurs during the day. So I love that. Find out what they think. Say, could you show me? And then problem solve it together. You know, the research says families say one of the most important things we do with them that's most helpful on visits is the problem solving. Ah, Mary, I love your honesty. This is tough because I immediately want to offer suggestions. That's what we are. We're problem solvers. But that when you're coaching, sort of suspending that, all that stuff you know in your head to help the family come up with the suggestion themselves. It's a great way to just pause that, but you're still going to share your expertise. You're just going to build on what they already know. Yep, Corey says ask if they can see what them tried. Karen and Molly and Carrie said ask what's motivating for him. Maybe it's crawling to his mom. Maybe it's crawling after a toy. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe, you know, there's nothing as motivating as a goofy sibling. So maybe Hakeem's sister can help motivate him too. So great, you know, and I love what Mary shared about how she'd want to jump right in, because when you get folks on your teams that share that kind of feedback, it's a beautiful opportunity to talk about why we feel that way and how we can be aware of our own feelings, because we have to be aware of our beliefs and feelings if we're going to change our practices. So well done, guys. All right, and so we get to the conclusion of the manual. You have a sort of a yay, you're done, but a little message to the coaches to help you keep the learning going. We also gave you some places to go for additional resources. So we mentioned, of course, our website and the blog. I would love to have feedback as you are using this, because this is an ongoing project. We can tweak and improve as we need to. So I want to hear from you now in chat. What are you thinking? What ideas are percolating? How could you use the coaching guide to help your staff learn, to help them practice what they already know, and to help them improve on their practices? So type an idea into chat, something you're thinking about. How could you use these activities with your folks? You might even be thinking about when. Maybe there's a certain time you have staff meetings. Yeah, Stanton Waynesboro writes staff meetings, community of practice meetings. I love the community of practice idea. Mary Lou says provider meetings. That's awesome. So I guess it's an opportunity to get together with your providers. Prince William says introduce these activities during staff meetings every once in a while to keep this alive. Yeah, that's a great way to kind of give you something to do to sustain the practices. Use them during our coaching meetings in both the Valley and the Blue Ridge, definitely. You know, a lot of these activities could be used as a supervisor, maybe when you're orienting folks to coaching. We have in the first section, there's a get the facts about coaching, and it's a true-false kind of quiz. And when we were piloting this in Tidewater, we had our Naval Medical Center folks came to our meetings, and they took that back and used it with pediatricians and their medical staff, which I thought was pretty exciting, because she said our medical staff, they don't really know that much about this, but they're hearing about coaching, that's what early intervention is using. So maybe you can use some of these activities with your outreach to your referral sources. Oh, I like it, Leah. Thank you. Attend the contract agency staff meeting and facilitate. Definitely. So you guys have a common goal with us. We want you to use the guide, and you're already coming up with some great ideas. So that's where we want to go next. We want to talk to you about our idea for an implementation project. We really didn't want to work as hard as we did on putting this guide together to just throw it out there as a PDF on the website and have it sit there and nobody use it. So this is where we want to help you use what we've built. So we've come up with an implementation plan, and I want you to listen, and I'm hoping you're thinking about, maybe that's something I want to get involved in. I feel like I'm doing like an infomercial. All right, so our implementation plan, the what? Our intention is to provide support for you guys as local leaders. We're hoping some of you will volunteer to use the guide to facilitate a book study or activities with your program or your locality for the next 6 months. The who would be any of you, the master coaches, supervisors, but this is open to anybody who's committed to coaching. So you might have had turnover. Maybe your master coach isn't with your program anymore. Maybe you don't have one master coach in your program, but you still want to get this rolling in your system. We invite you to join us, because that's how we're really going to make a difference and make this work, is if we're all working together. The why, this is all about supporting local implementation. And we can do statewide and regional trainings. We can just keep doing them, but really they don't matter if you're not able to use what you learn and keep using it. And so that's what this is, to help you do that. Our plan right now is to take the folks that volunteer, those leaders, the leaders of those groups will meet once a month online with us, probably 60 to 90 minutes, it depends on the size of our group. We'll be using Blackboard, which is the technology we're using for the webinar today, so you're already familiar with that. And you will get online with us monthly to talk about your implementation of the activities, to share ideas, to share what goes well and maybe your challenges, and to support each other. We have found that in the Tidewater group, people really valued the opportunity to get together and see what other people are doing, and it sort of energized us to keep the effort going. So we want to offer that on a broader scale to folks across the state. We also want to take advantage of all of your expertise and give you a chance to share it with each other. So that's the implementation plan for now. Here's our time frame. We're hoping to identify our local coaching leaders, so the people that volunteer to participate, within the next 10 days or so. I want to start holding the monthly implementation meetings in November. They'll be monthly through April. And then at the end of this, we want to find out from you what you thought. And so we'll survey our coaching leaders about their satisfaction with the project, how it went for them to use the guide, and we'll use that feedback to see if we're going to repeat this project, if we're going to make changes to the implementation guide. We really build this around your feedback. So what questions can I answer? As you're thinking about this, are there questions about the project that I can answer for you? Oh, did I put, let me see, Mary. Oh, you're right. See there, you caught my typo. I was going to do this last year. You're right. It absolutely is May 2016. Yeah, this will go through next year. Thank you for catching that. It's funny, I was going through the coaching guide, facilitation guide preparing for this, and what do you know, I found a typo. Makes me crazy. Corey says, wait, Mary Lou, did you miss it? It happened last May. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jeannie. That was totally my mistake. All right, any other questions? Okay, I see some folks are typing, so I'll wait another couple minutes. Okay, so Mary Lou asks another good question. Do we commit to a specific number of activities each month or week if we participate? That's a great question. I am not thinking you need to commit to a certain number of activities each month. What we'll do, we will talk about how you want to implement it in your locality. My thought is that we'd like for you to, we'll all be working in the same section. So if one month we're all doing section 1, you might choose to do a couple of activities at a monthly provider meeting. Or if you have a weekly staff meeting, you might say, okay, well I'm going to do 4 activities this month, 1 at each of my staff meetings. How you implement that section really is up to you, and then you'll come online with the rest of the leaders the following month and talk about what went well, what you need some guidance on. You know, you'll be able to share your experience. Each meeting will have a topic too, Mary Lou, that I've pulled together, and I'll share this with the leaders, kind of something to help us give some structure to the meeting, to help extend your knowledge as a leader too. The primary purpose of them, though, is to support each individual leader's implementation of the guide. I hope that answers your question. If not, type it in the chat and let me know. All right. Okay, good. Thank you, Mary Lou. I'm glad. Okay. All right. So Tracy says, oh, Tracy, you're so kind. Well, the core group certainly gave ideas and lots of brain power. It could not have come about, oh, thank you. I feel weird repeating that, with my leadership and work in between sessions. It was a tremendous amount of work, but I was telling Corey the other day, Tracy, that I couldn't have come up with all this stuff on my own. So I think we're a great group to work together. So thank you guys. You didn't, Tracy. I was reading out loud before I'd read the whole thing. I appreciate that, Tracy. That was very kind of you. Okay, Stanton, how large of a group are you looking to try this? Is there a limit? That's a good question. I don't have a limit. I'm just going to see how many folks I get. Facilitating an online group will not be as effective with a giant group of people. So I'm looking to see how much interest we have. If we have 10 systems, we can do 1 call. If I have 20 systems, 20 folks that want to do it, I might split that up into 2 calls. So I don't really have a limit. Honestly, I guess I was just kind of going to see how much interest we had. I'm hoping for a lot of interest because I think this would be pretty fun. That was a great question, though. I will say, though, that I do feel like it's a little bit first come, first serve, at least for this go-round. I'm going to do my best not to say and to tell anybody, no, you can't join us. I'll just have to think about how to work that out. So that's a great question. It kind of gives me a segue into my next slide. So if you're really wanting to look at how to turn the theory, the coaching practices, into your practices, type it in the chat. Let me know if you're interested in participating. Awesome. I see Karen, Molly, and Carrie. We're on it. We're interested. So I'm going to put you guys down. Awesome. Thanks, Karen. Some of you might be thinking, I think I'm interested, but I need to talk about it a little bit more. And that's okay. We would love to hear, oh, Fairfax, you guys are interested. Awesome. I love it, and I'd love Fairfax has some awesome things they've already been doing in their locality. So if you join the call, you guys are going to hear some good stuff from them. Okay, great. I can't keep up. Central Virginia. Hi, Gail and Sarah. That's awesome. Gail Marie.
Dana, Jeannie's grabbing this too, so we'll have the list.
Thank you. You'd think I'd know that. I'm furiously writing things down, Corey. It's sort of
I could sense that on the phone.
Yeah. Okay, Tracy, you said I would be happy to do. Let me know what you're thinking. Okay, Prince William, but I need to talk to her and get back to me. That's totally fine, guys. And then let's see, Janet writes in. Interested but have more questions. Let me know, Janet. I mean, you feel free to email me, but I'm happy to get on the phone with you too and chat with about your questions. I'll be out of town from tomorrow through Thursday, so I might have to set up some times to talk next week, but I will definitely, just email me and let me know. Chesapeake says we are thinking about it. That's awesome. And Mary Lou, additional questions. That's great. Well, like I said, you guys feel free to email me, or I'm happy to talk with you about your questions. Thank you, Jeannie, for putting my email in. I appreciate it. All right, looks like I'll make sure, see if anybody else is typing in. And I do understand that sometimes folks need to go back and talk with their system manager or think about how this would work with the group. Like I said on the timeline, hoping to identify my folks and let you know around October 16th. So if you're thinking about it, like a couple folks have questions, let me know, because I would, let me look at my calendar. I would love to, but have everybody on board by next Friday, which is the 16th. So keep me posted. Rosemary said, I'll talk to Carol and get back to you. Fantastic. Thank you, Rosemary. All right, so we'll just wrap up today. This is one of my favorite quotes. Everything is hard before it's easy. And it's sort of a no-brainer. Oh, okay, good, Sarah. Let me know about your questions too. I love this quote because it's just true. If you look at an experts, there's, some theories out there that say to develop expertise, you need to practice something for 10,000 hours. That just makes me hyperventilate to even think about that much time. But every expert found it hard when they started. And so that's coaching. Coaching is a little hard when you're trying to use it. Plus, we're not just using it with one group. We're using it with different families in different environments, different child care providers. But it will get easier as you commit to honing your practices. And so we're hoping this will make this a little bit easier for you guys as leaders to help support your colleagues. Oh, I love it, Mary. Another quote, the expert at anything was once a beginner. Absolutely. So we're all in this together. So I'm hoping that we can help you guys help your staff get where they would like to be. So there's another giggle for you. There's me as the robot or the astronaut. Feel free to email me, and I'm happy to answer your questions. If you email me after tomorrow about noon and I'm a little bit slow on getting back, it's just because I'm out of town, but I'll keep an eye on my email and try to get back with you as soon as I can. So that is it for today. If you have any other cue Rocket Man again. Awesome. I told Jeannie she made my bucket list happen with this astronaut thing here, and she said, with her skills, she could pretty much check everything off my bucket list. So next I think I want a picture of me in a hot air balloon flying over the pyramids of Egypt. Jeannie, I'm just putting my order in. So anyway, guys, feel free to let me know. Thank you. Jeannie, I'll work on that. If you have any questions, and thank you so much for joining us today as we walk through the guide. I would love to hear from you and love to have your feedback as you start using it. I'll hang around for a little more questions if you need anything. Oh, hi,
and this is Corey, and I too want to thank everybody for joining. Please plan to join in November. We're getting ready to get the registration out, but that is going to be about feeding. So information will be sent soon, so thank you all.
Absolutely. Well, we will just kind of keep an eye on the chat, and if you have any other questions, feel free to type them in. If not, you guys have a wonderful day, and hopefully I'll be hearing from you soon.